The knife in the lake. The knife in the lake. Now let's turn back to the knife in the lake. We had a representative of the state hold up a grapefruit as an analog to human flesh. Our filing in federal court says that the analog of a grapefruit to human flesh being cut is like cutting chalk to comparing cheese. It's a fraud. It can't be done. He makes the marks himself, and he describes to the jury how they're measured, and he says, I'm telling you, you can superimpose them, they're exactly there. It's a classic, there is no testimony in the record to that. It is a classic instance of prosecutorial misconduct in attempting to inform a jury of facts that are unbased in the evidence. It is a federal Sixth Amendment right violation. It is a critical claim in front of the federal court right now. In rebuttal argument, prosecutor Brent Davis says, well, take this knife, and you saw it. There's a sharp edge on the front, and the serration is actually on the back side of the knife. And he says, if you're cutting the penis with the sharp edge, then the serrated edge will be making marks on the thigh of Chris Byers. No foundation for that in the record. It's simply not true. And I assure you that if you can stomach looking at these autopsy photos, when you see the thighs of Chris Byers with hundreds of marks on them, you'd still be there with a knife trying to make that number of marks. You will see it is truly obvious where this predation came from. A phenomenon, and this is attested to in the federal writ, if you can bear this, called the gloving. There was a big scene in the trial. It's in the DVD about the trial, in which the state's pathologist is asked, well, how could you do that surgical operation on the penis? Wouldn't you need a scalpel? Wouldn't you have to do it in an operating room? Could you do it on a bank? Could you do it in the water? And he says, I don't know how you could remove the skin that way. It is well established in the medical literature that if something like an animal pulls on the testes, the skin of the penis comes off like a glove, leaving the corpus of the penis on the body, which is exactly what happened in this case. Go then to another critical piece of evidence against Echols. Brian Ridge says, you know, when I talked to Echols 3 days after the crime, he knew that one of the boys was cut worse than the others. Well, we've supplied the court with any number of newspapers that reported the fact that Byers was cut worse than the others. But the inference that Ms. Echols knew this because he was there to see the emasculation of Byers is, as so much in this case, simply false. And this is truly, there is a study recently on wrongful convictions, including death convictions. They list the factors that are most common in the last 200 cases. One is false confessions by teenagers, mentally deficient people, or both. Jesse Miss Kelly. Another one is the production of jailhouse informants who say, oh, the defendant confessed to me. Now, you can have a tape recording of that. It's credible. He says he can confess that the murder weapon is buried under his house. They find it. It's credible. There is no form, no prosecutor can put an uncorroborated jailhouse informant on the stand, uncorroborated, and know that he is that is not perjury. There is no one who can possibly know that it is perjury. Let's look at Michael Carson.
Did you have an occasion again while you were in the detention facility to ask him, was he involved in the murders of the 3 8-year-olds?
Yes. I think it was like the next day. I believe it was the next day.
And can you tell us what the scenario, what was going on, what was happening at the time that occurred?
Well, me and Jason Baldwin were scraping up the cards, going to ourselves for lunch. I said, just between me and you, I won't say a word. Did you do it? He said yes, and he went into detail about it.
You said he went into more detail. What did he tell you?
He told me how he dismembered the kid, or I don't know exactly how many kids, he just said he dismembered them. He sucked the blood from the penis and the scrotum and put the balls in his mouth.
So this supposedly happened within 24 hours of Carson, who's in jail for about 3 burglaries, including at 16-year-old breaking into a house to steal guns. Comes in and says, Jason Baldwin, who has made a statement to no one, within 24 hours confessed that to them. Does Carson go to the police? Does he mention it to the jailers? No. 8-9 months later, when Jesse Misskelley is finally on trial, Carson comes forward for the first time to say that Jason Baldwin told him that he put Chris Byers' balls in his mouth. You have just seen someone lie under oath to send a man to the death chamber. Lie under oath. And I won't go into detail here, but it won't be that long before the story of Michael Carson and his years since then are told by attorneys for Jason Baldwin. And when that story is told, if there were ever any doubt, you will see that this is the classic form of jailhouse uncorroborated perjury. And of course, the forensics make that clear. That was an animal that caused that wound to Chris Byers. However, it was that testimony that led Dale Griffiths to say, well, this is a satanic killing. Damien Echols was involved in it. He's a Satanist, and I'll tell you that it's a satanic killing. On what basis does Dr. Griffiths say this? First, let's deal with Dr. Griffiths. Do we have a graph of that?
This is a mail order college, isn't it? What classes did you take between 1980 and 1982 to obtain your master's degree? What classes?
I testified.
I'm asking you, what classes? What classes did you take?
I told you, I answered that before, none.
You did not take any classes. Between 1982 and 1984, when you became a PhD, what classes did you take?
None.
None. Okay. Is it your...
Dr. Griffiths attended Columbia Pacific University by mail, he says. A PhD in cult studies from Columbia Pacific University, which was shut down by the state of California in 1997 as a fraudulent diploma mill. Dr. Griffiths says that he knows that this is a satanic crime because there is a wound on the left side of Steve Branch. And left side facial wounds are satanic as opposed to right side facial wounds, which I assume are Christian. And he says the other reason that he knows, he says that it's a satanic killing because it happened in between May 5th is in between May 1st, which is a satanic holiday. In the Catholic school I was raised in, it was the date of the beginning of month of our Mary. And Walpersnick and Wabane. I called Ken Lanning, who was the FBI, and John Douglas will talk about this more, the FBI expert on satanic activities then, because they were coming in from all around the country. He said they all had calendars of the satanic holidays. He said it was over for him when he saw a calendar of 120 satanic holidays and murders, they said, were committed within 2 days of each of them. Okay, multiply 120 by 2 or 3. He relies on Carson. Okay, if Carson, he's asked, assume that Jason Baldwin put the balls of Chris Byers in his mouth. Is this a satanic killing? Yes. As Ken Lanning said, if they had killed these kids with a whoopee cushion, Dale Griffiths would have come in to testify that a whoopee cushion is a satanic instrument of murder. Here is his new book. Here is his new book, 2001, in which he details how he discovered that 2 13-year-old girls were taken over by the CIA, given electric shock treatment, and at the age of 14 became military pilots and committed assassinations for the CIA, and then were brainwashed to forget it. And it was only with his assistance that he was able to recover the memories of this abuse of these 13-year-old girls by the CIA.